Have you ever paused to wonder, am I just a convenience in someone else's life? Maybe you felt like your presence is appreciated only when it suits others, like you're always available, yet somehow invisible when you need support. Does it feel as though your efforts go unnoticed, your kindness exploited, and your time undervalued? If these questions resonate, you're not alone. But here's the truth. Allowing yourself to be used isn't an external problem, it starts within. When we fail to recognize our worth and set boundaries, we inadvertently teach others that it's acceptable to undervalue us. Yet there's hope. Ancient Stoicism, with its timeless wisdom, offers practical tools to reclaim your self-respect, protect your peace, and demand the respect you deserve. Today we'll unravel 10 powerful habits to help you break free from these unhealthy dynamics. These aren't mere theories but actionable steps inspired by Stoic principles to transform the way others perceive and treat you. Stay with me until the end, where the most liberating habit awaits. A habit that will completely redefine how you approach your relationships and your self-worth. Are you ready to step into your power? Let's start with the cornerstone of it all, reaffirming your self-worth. 1. Reaffirm your self-worth. How often do you remind yourself of your inherent value? Or let me ask this, when was the last time you paused to truly appreciate your strengths, your resilience, and all that you bring to the table? The harsh truth is, if you don't see your worth, how can you expect others to? In Stoicism, there's a profound belief that the way we think colors our entire existence. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your mind is filled with self-doubt and thoughts of unworthiness, those around you will reflect that back to you. On the other hand, when you consciously affirm your value, you set the tone for how others treat you. So how do you begin to reaffirm your self-worth? Start by asking yourself, what do I love about myself? What makes me unique? Maybe it's your creativity, your determination, or the way you uplift those around you. Write these qualities down and revisit them regularly. By doing this, you're not indulging in arrogance, but reinforcing a healthy foundation of self-respect. Imagine walking into every interaction with the quiet confidence that you deserve kindness, respect, and appreciation. Picture how your relationships would change if you no longer tolerated treatment that falls short of your standards. This is not a distant fantasy, it's entirely achievable. Yet we all have moments when the world tries to chip away at our self-esteem. A harsh comment here, a rejection there, and soon doubt creeps in. How do you handle these moments? Instead of internalizing negativity, remember, others' opinions do not define your worth. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, teaches us that it's not what happens to us, but how we react that matters. Reaffirming your self-worth means choosing to react with grace and confidence, no matter the circumstance. But let's not stop at affirmations. Let your actions reflect your belief in your worth. For example, do you speak up when you're overlooked in a group discussion? Do you assert your needs in relationships? Reaffirming your self-worth isn't just about internal work, it's about externalizing that belief through your choices. Now think about the ripple effect this has. When you respect yourself, others naturally follow suit. You'll notice people paying more attention, valuing your input, and treating you with the respect you've been seeking. Why? Because self-respect is contagious. When you carry yourself with dignity, you set a silent but powerful standard for how others should engage with you. Let me leave you with one simple exercise. Each morning, stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the eyes and say, "I know my value." Write it down, say it aloud, comment it below if you'd like. This seemingly small habit can transform how you see yourself over time. When your mind is dyed with thoughts of worthiness, you'll notice the world beginning to reflect that back. As we continue, remember this. Reaffirming your self-worth is the foundation upon which every other habit is built. Without it, boundaries crumble, and respect becomes a distant hope. But when you hold on to your worth, you're already halfway to reclaiming the life you deserve. Ready for the next step? Let's dive into the art of respecting and upholding your values. It's time to solidify the principles that make you who you are. Stay with me. 2. Respect and uphold your values. What do you stand for? Honesty? Kindness? Loyalty? Have you ever felt the inner conflict of compromising these values just to keep the peace or fit in? Each time we bend our principles for others, we send a subtle message, not just to them, but to ourselves that our beliefs are negotiable. But let me ask you this. If you don't respect your values, who will? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In the same way, our actions dye the fabric of our identity. When we respect our values, we live with integrity, aligning our thoughts, words, and deeds. But when we betray those values, we chip away at our self-respect, leaving ourselves open to being undervalued or, worse, used by others. So how do you respect your values in a world that often challenges them? Start with clarity. Take time to identify the core principles that define you. What would you never compromise on? Maybe it's the value of honesty, even when lying might seem easier. Or perhaps it's the principle of kindness, even when anger feels justified. Whatever your values, write them down and reflect on how well your actions align with them. Now let's get practical. Imagine you're in a situation where gossiping is the norm, but one of your values is kindness. What do you do? Do you join in to avoid standing out, or do you stay true to your principles? Choosing kindness in this moment isn't just an act of self-respect. It's a powerful way to show others what you stand for. Over time, these choices build your reputation and teach others how to treat you. But what about the fear of rejection? Doesn't standing firm risk alienating people? Perhaps. Yet as the Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. True strength lies in knowing that the relationships worth keeping are those that respect your values, not those that demand you abandon them. Think about it. If you compromise on your values to fit in, are you truly being accepted or just tolerated? By staying true to who you are, you attract the kind of people who genuinely appreciate and respect you. Isn't that worth the risk of a little discomfort? Here's a challenge for you. The next time you're faced with a situation that tests your values, pause and ask yourself, am I acting in alignment with who I want to be? This simple question can guide your decisions and keep you anchored to your principles. Let me share a story to illustrate this. Imagine someone who values loyalty above all else but finds themselves in a relationship where their trust is repeatedly broken. They make excuses, bend their principles, and try to make things work despite the pain it causes. Over time, their self-respect erodes and they feel trapped. Now imagine if they had stood firm from the beginning, communicating their boundaries and leaving when those boundaries were crossed. Wouldn't their life look entirely different? This is the power of respecting your values. It sets a standard not only for how others treat you, but also for how you treat yourself. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Now let's take a moment together. I want you to think about one value that is most important to you. Share it in the comments below. It could be honesty, kindness, independence, or something else entirely. Writing it down is a powerful way to reaffirm your commitment to that value. And if this resonates with you, let me know by giving this video a like. Every like helps us spread these Stoic principles to others who might need them. Remember, when you respect your values, you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, others have no choice but to follow suit. Ready to take the next step? Let's explore how emotional balance can safeguard your dignity and protect you from being used. Stay with me. 3. Seek emotional balance. How often do you find your emotions dictating your actions? One moment, everything seems calm. The next, someone's harsh words or sudden mood shift throws you completely off balance. Does this leave you feeling manipulated or vulnerable, as though others have power over your inner peace? What if I told you there's a way to regain control, no matter the chaos around you? Stoicism teaches us that the only true freedom lies in mastering our own minds. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Emotional balance is not about suppressing feelings. It's about understanding them and choosing how to respond rather than react. Imagine this. Someone close to you says something hurtful. Your immediate instinct might be to lash out, withdraw, or let their words consume your thoughts. But in that moment, what do you truly gain by reacting impulsively? Often, it only escalates the situation, leaving you feeling worse and giving the other person control over your state of mind. Instead, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what truly matters here? By focusing on what aligns with your values, calmness, dignity, self-respect, you can choose a response that upholds your integrity. Maybe that response is silence. Maybe it's calmly expressing how their words made you feel. Whatever it is, it's a choice born of clarity, not chaos. Now consider this. Why do people manipulate others? They exploit emotional vulnerabilities, guilt, fear, anger, to get what they want. When you're emotionally unbalanced, those vulnerabilities become easy targets. But when you cultivate emotional balance, you become a fortress. Others can no longer push your buttons because those buttons no longer exist. Achieving this balance begins with self-awareness. What triggers your strongest emotional reactions? Perhaps it's a dismissive comment, being overlooked, or a partner's unpredictable behavior. Recognizing these triggers is the first step to regaining control. Once you identify them, you can prepare yourself to respond thoughtfully, rather than impulsively. Let me share a Stoic practice that can help: premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Take a moment each day to anticipate the challenges you might face. Visualize someone cutting you off in traffic, a coworker criticizing your work, or a loved one being short-tempered. Imagine how these situations might unfold and how you can respond with calm and grace. By preparing yourself mentally, you build resilience for when these moments actually arise. But what about the emotions that feel overwhelming, those moments when it seems impossible to stay composed? This is where another Stoic principle becomes invaluable: focusing on what is within your control. You can't control someone else's actions, but you can control how you process and respond to them. When you shift your energy away from trying to manage others and toward mastering yourself, you free yourself from the grip of their influence. Now let's talk about guilt. Have you ever noticed how guilt often drives us to do things we don't want to do? A friend asks for a favor at the worst possible time, and instead of saying no, you agree out of fear of letting them down. But think about this. Who benefits from that decision? Not you. Emotional balance means recognizing that guilt is a feeling, not a command. You can acknowledge it without letting it dictate your actions. Lastly, remember that emotional balance doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. Suppression leads to resentment, burnout, and eventually emotional outbursts. Instead, acknowledge your emotions fully. Ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Understanding your emotions allows you to channel them constructively rather than letting them control you. When you cultivate emotional balance, you become unshakable. You protect your peace, make decisions aligned with your values, and show others that your emotions are yours to manage, not theirs to exploit. Isn't that a powerful place to be? Now, with your emotions grounded and steady, you're ready to assert your boundaries. In the next part, we'll explore how setting clear limits transforms the way others treat you and protects your well-being. Let's continue this journey together. 4. Establish clear boundaries. Have you ever felt like your kindness is being taken for granted? Perhaps you're the one people call when they need a favor, but when you need support, the silence is deafening. Does this leave you wondering, why do I give so much and receive so little? The answer often lies in a lack of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to shut people out, they're bridges to healthier, more balanced relationships. Without boundaries, your time, energy, and emotional well-being become a free-for-all, leaving you drained and resentful. But here's the truth. Boundaries are less about controlling others and more about teaching them how to respect you. Epictetus reminds us no man is free who is not master of himself. Part of mastering yourself is knowing your limits and communicating them clearly. Imagine your life as an open field. Without fences, anyone can wander in, trample through, and take whatever they please. But with clearly defined boundaries, you establish where people can and cannot tread, preserving your peace and dignity. Now, let's address a common misconception. Setting boundaries does not make you unkind or selfish. In fact, it's one of the most compassionate things you can do yourself and for others. Why? Because when you set clear boundaries, you ensure that your relationships are rooted in mutual respect rather than resentment or obligation. I think of a time when someone consistently demanded your time without considering your schedule. How did it feel? Exhausting? Frustrating? By setting a boundary such as saying, "I'm happy to help, but I need at least a day's notice," you're not rejecting the person, you're inviting them to respect your needs while still offering your support. It's a win-win. But what makes setting boundaries so difficult? Often it's the fear of upsetting others or being seen as difficult. Yet Marcus Aurelius advises us to focus on what truly matters. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, don't worry about pleasing everyone. Instead, focus on living with integrity, which includes honoring your own limits. Of course, some people will push back when you set boundaries, especially if they're used to you always saying yes. This resistance isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that your boundaries are necessary. Stand firm. Over time, those who respect you will adjust, and those who don't will drift away, making room for healthier connections. How do you establish boundaries effectively? Start with clarity. Reflect on what drains you and what energizes you. Identify the areas in your life where you feel overextended or taken for granted. Then communicate your boundaries clearly and calmly. For example, instead of saying "you're always interrupting me," try "I need uninterrupted time to focus, so I'll respond after I've finished my task." Consistency is key. A boundary that's enforced one day and ignored the next sends mixed signals, making it harder for others to take you seriously. For instance, if you set a boundary about not working during weekends, but frequently make exceptions, you're essentially teaching others that your boundaries are flexible. Stick to your limits, even when it feels uncomfortable. But what if guilt creeps in? Remind yourself that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. You cannot pour from an empty cup. By protecting your well-being, you're better equipped to show up authentically and generously for those who matter most. Now imagine a life where your boundaries are respected, where your time and energy are valued, and where you no longer feel used or taken for granted. This isn't a distant dream. It's a reality you can create by consistently setting and enforcing clear boundaries. With boundaries firmly in place, you've taken a significant step toward reclaiming your self-respect. Next, let's delve into the art of open and honest communication, the key to building stronger, more authentic relationships. Stay with me. 5. Communicate openly and honestly. Have you ever found yourself holding back your true feelings, afraid that speaking up might lead to conflict or rejection? Perhaps you've chosen silence, hoping that others would somehow intuit your needs. Yet more often than not, this silence leads to misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and the painful feeling of being overlooked. How can we ensure that we are seen, heard, and respected? The answer lies in open and honest communication. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what happens when those thoughts remain unspoken? How can others understand your values, needs, or boundaries if you never voice them? Stoicism teaches us that clarity and honesty in communication are essential to maintaining dignity and ensuring that relationships are based on mutual respect. Imagine this. You're feeling overwhelmed because your partner, friend, or colleague constantly asks for favors without considering your time or energy. Instead of addressing the issue, push down your frustration, hoping they'll eventually notice. But they don't. Resentment builds and the relationship suffers. What could have been resolved with an honest conversation now feels like an insurmountable divide. Let's rewrite that scenario. Instead of bottling up your feelings, you choose to communicate openly. "I've been feeling overwhelmed lately, and it's been hard for me to take on extra tasks. Can we find a better balance?" This simple statement does two powerful things. First, it expresses your feelings clearly without placing blame. Second, it invites the other person to collaborate on a solution rather than putting them on the defensive. But how do you approach these conversations without coming across as confrontational? The key lies in using I statements. Instead of saying "you never consider my time," which can feel accusatory, try "I feel overwhelmed when last-minute requests come up because it disrupts my schedule." This shifts the focus to your experience, opening the door for constructive dialogue. Epictetus offers us wisdom here. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Open communication isn't just about expressing your needs, it's also about actively listening to the needs of others. When you listen deeply, you show respect for the other person's perspective, fostering trust and understanding. Of course, communication isn't always easy. Sometimes the fear of rejection or conflict can make even the thought of speaking up feel daunting. But consider this. What's more painful, an uncomfortable conversation now or the slow erosion of a relationship over time? Stoicism teaches us to embrace discomfort for the sake of long-term peace. By addressing issues early and honestly, you prevent small misunderstandings from growing into major conflicts. Now let's talk about consistency. Have you ever noticed how inconsistent communication, sometimes being clear, other times staying silent, can confuse others and lead to even greater misunderstandings? When you consistently express your needs and boundaries, you create a stable foundation for your relationships. Others learn to trust your words and understand where you stand. Here's a challenge for you. Think about one area in your life where you've been hesitant to speak up. Maybe it's a situation at work, a recurring issue with a friend, or something in your romantic relationship. Take a moment to reflect on what's been left unsaid and why. Then commit to having that conversation calmly, clearly, and honestly. If you've ever found clarity through an honest conversation, share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to take that brave step toward open communication. And if this reminder of the power of honesty resonates with you, show your support by giving this video a like. Every like helps us reach more people who may need these Stoic insights in their lives. Remember, when you communicate openly and honestly, you honor your own needs and invite others to honor them too. It's a skill that strengthens relationships, fosters respect, and ensures that you are never taken for granted. Now that you've learned to speak your truth, it's time to delve deeper into protecting your emotional well-being. Let's explore how cultivating emotional balance fortifies you against being used. Stay with me. 6. Demand respect, don't just expect it. Have you ever caught yourself quietly hoping for respect, only to feel disappointed when it didn't come? You may have thought, if I treat others well, they'll naturally treat me the same way. But life doesn't always work that way. Respect isn't something that magically appears. It's something you cultivate through how you carry yourself and at times actively demand. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you see yourself as unworthy or insignificant, others will pick up on this energy and treat you accordingly. But when you carry yourself with dignity and self-assurance, you set a silent yet powerful expectation for how others should interact with you. So how do you demand respect without seeming arrogant or confrontational? The answer lies in your actions and consistency. The respect is not earned through forceful words or loud proclamations, but through the quiet strength of living in alignment with your values. Waste no time arguing for respect. Demonstrate it through the way you show up in the world. Imagine you're in a work meeting, consistently offering valuable input, yet your ideas are overlooked while others receive recognition. You might feel invisible, as though your contributions don't matter. In such moments, instead of staying silent, you can assert yourself. Calmly say, "I'd like to revisit my earlier point as I believe it addresses the issue effectively." This isn't about seeking validation, it's about standing up for the worth of your contributions. Respect also requires boundaries. People treat you based on the standards you set. If you consistently accept behavior that diminishes your worth, be it interruptions, dismissiveness, or neglect, You signal to others that such treatment is acceptable. By drawing clear lines, you communicate that respect is non-negotiable. Let's not forget another key element of demanding respect: consistency. If you let small slights slide one day, but react strongly the next, you create confusion. People might see you as unpredictable, and your boundaries lose their strength. Demanding respect requires steadfastness. It's about showing up daily with the same quiet confidence and unwavering standards. But what happens when someone repeatedly fails to respect you, even after you've been clear about your boundaries? This is where Stoic resilience becomes essential. As Epictetus advises, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. If someone refuses to offer you respect, despite your efforts, it's a reflection of their character, not your worth. Respond by removing yourself from situations or relationships where respect is absent. In doing so, you affirm your value without wasting energy on those unwilling to honor it. At the heart of demanding respect lies self-respect. The way you see and treat yourself sets the baseline for how others will treat you. If you allow disrespectful behavior, it suggests to others that you tolerate it, or worse, that you think you deserve it. Conversely, when you carry yourself with dignity, others are compelled to rise to your level. Reflect for a moment. Are there areas in your life where you've been accepting less respect than you deserve? Perhaps it's a relationship where your needs are consistently sidelined, or a workplace where your contributions go unnoticed. How would your life change if you stopped waiting for respect and started demanding it through your actions, boundaries, and presence? Demanding respect isn't about being demanding, it's about being discerning. It's about knowing your worth and ensuring that those around you see it too. When you embrace this mindset, you not only transform the way others treat you, but also strengthen your relationship with yourself. With respect firmly established, let's turn our attention to the inner work of reaffirming your self-worth, a practice that ensures you never lose sight of your value, no matter the challenges you face. Stay with me. 7. Reaffirm your self-worth. What happens when you forget your own worth? It might start subtly, accepting a little less appreciation, excusing behavior that crosses a boundary, or convincing yourself that your contributions aren't significant. Over time, this erosion of self-worth creates a gap where others can take advantage of your kindness, your time, or your talents. The antidote: consistently reaffirming your value. Marcus Aurelius wise observed, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your mind is filled with doubts about your significance, those doubts will seep into your actions and interactions. But when you deliberately fill your thoughts with recognition of your strengths, your self-worth becomes unshakable. Reaffirming your self-worth begins with reflection. Ask yourself, what are my strengths? What value do I bring to my relationships, work, and community? These questions might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've been conditioned to downplay your achievements. But think about it. How can others see your worth if you don't see it yourself? Take the time to list your qualities, skills, and contributions. Keep this list where you can see it as a reminder during challenging moments. Now consider how self-worth shapes your boundaries. When you know your value, you're less likely to tolerate behavior that diminishes it. For example, imagine a friend who frequently cancels plans last minute, leaving you feeling unimportant. Instead of internalizing this as a reflection of your worth, reaffirm your value. My time and presence matter, and I deserve to be treated with consideration. This mindset empowers you to address the issue confidently, setting a standard for how you expect to be treated. But reaffirming self-worth isn't just about confronting others, it's about how you treat yourself. Do you prioritize your needs, or do you consistently put yourself last? Do you celebrate your achievements, or do you dismiss them as insignificant? Self-worth is built through daily actions of self-respect. When you make time for your passions, rest when you need it, or acknowledge your hard work, you send a message to yourself and others that you are valuable. What about moments of doubt? Perhaps someone's criticism stings or a failure shakes your confidence. This is when Stoicism offers powerful guidance. Epictetus reminds us it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Reaffirming your self-worth doesn't mean ignoring setbacks. It means choosing to see them as opportunities for growth, rather than as definitions of your value. When faced with criticism, ask yourself, is this feedback constructive, or does it reflect the other person's perspective rather than my truth? Visualization can also be a powerful tool. Picture yourself walking into a room with quiet confidence, aware of your strengths and grounded in your value. How does this version of you interact with others? What choices do they make? By envisioning this version of yourself regularly, you begin to embody it in your daily life. Reaffirming your self-worth also strengthens your resilience against manipulation. People who seek to use others often prey on insecurity, exploiting doubts and fears to their advantage. But when your self-worth is solid, these tactics lose their power. You become less susceptible to flattery, guilt, or intimidation, standing firm in the knowledge of your value. Finally, think about the ripple effect of self-worth on your relationships. When you recognize and honor your value, you inspire others to do the same. Your confidence encourages mutual respect, creating healthier, more fulfilling connections. By modeling self-worth, you also empower others to see and embrace their own. Take a moment to reflect. How would your life change if you made a habit of reaffirming your self-worth? Imagine the clarity and strength you'd bring to your decisions, the confidence in your interactions, and the peace in knowing your value isn't dependent on external validation. With your self-worth reaffirmed, you're ready to take the next step, investing in personal growth. Let's explore how continuous self-improvement not only enriches your life, but also safeguards you from being taken for granted. Stay with me. 8. Invest in personal growth. When was the last time you invested in yourself? Not for others, not for work, but purely to become a stronger, more fulfilled version of you. It's easy to fall into the trap of constant giving, prioritizing others' needs over your own growth. But what if I told you that personal growth isn't just a gift to yourself? It's also the strongest shield against being undervalued or taken for granted. In Stoicism, growth is a lifelong pursuit. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Growth isn't about external achievements or validation, it's about striving to embody your highest potential. When you invest in personal development, you raise your standards not just for yourself, but for how others treat you. Think about it. When you expand your skills, deepen your knowledge, or strengthen your character, you change how you see yourself. And when you view yourself with greater respect, others are compelled to do the same. Growth transforms your mindset from one of dependence to one of empowerment, making it clear to everyone around you that you are someone who values themselves. Where can you start? Begin by identifying areas in your life where you feel stuck or overlooked. Perhaps it's your communication skills, emotional resilience, or even a hobby you've always wanted to pursue. Personal growth doesn't always have to be grand. Even small steps, reading a new book, learning a skill, or practicing mindfulness can have profound effects on your confidence and self-respect. Imagine a relationship where your personal growth inspires respect and admiration rather than complacency or neglect. For example, consider someone who feels unappreciated in their job. Instead of waiting for recognition, they invest in new skills, attend workshops, or start a side project they're passionate about. Over time, their efforts shift how others perceive them, not as someone who waits for approval, but as someone who commands it through action. But let's be clear. Personal growth isn't just about external changes. It's about internal transformation. It's asking yourself tough questions. Am I living up to my potential? Do my actions align with my values? Growth requires honest reflection, a willingness to confront weaknesses, and the courage to move beyond your comfort zone. Here's a practical challenge. Identify one area of growth you've been avoiding. Maybe it's speaking up more, managing stress, or creating healthier boundaries. Take one concrete action this week to address it. Progress isn't about perfection, it's about taking consistent steps forward. When you invest in yourself, something remarkable happens. You become less reliant on others for validation. Now think about this. How often do we look to others, partners, friends, co-workers for approval, only to feel disappointed when it doesn't come? Personal growth shifts that dynamic. You become your own source of confidence and fulfillment, which not only protects you from being used, but also strengthens your relationships. After all, the more whole you are, the more you can give without losing yourself in the process. If you've ever experienced the transformative power of investing in yourself, share your journey in the comments below. Whether it was learning a new skill, overcoming a challenge, or simply taking time for self-care, your story might inspire someone else to begin their own journey of growth. And if this reminder resonates with you, let us know by liking this video. Every like helps us share these Stoic principles with more people who might need them. Remember, personal growth isn't just about bettering yourself. It's about fortifying your self-respect and ensuring that others treat you accordingly. You are a masterpiece in progress, and every step you take adds to the strength and depth of who you are. With growth as your foundation, let's turn to the power of solitude, an often overlooked tool for building resilience and reclaiming your independence. Stay with me. 9. Cherish your solitude. How do you feel about being alone? For many, solitude can seem uncomfortable or even unsettling, as if the quiet reveals truths we'd rather avoid. Yet Stoicism teaches us that solitude is not a state of loneliness. It is a powerful tool for self-discovery and independence. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Have you found this retreat within yourself? In a world that often equates constant connection with fulfillment, we may overlook the profound strength found in solitude. When we rely too heavily on others for our happiness or validation, we leave ourselves vulnerable to being used. But when you cherish your own company, you become self-reliant, grounded, and unshakable. Imagine this. Instead of seeking validation from external relationships, you find peace in your own thoughts and company. What does this look like? It's spending an evening reflecting on your goals instead of waiting for someone to text back. It's pursuing hobbies that bring you joy rather than doing things merely to please others. Solitude allows you to reconnect with who you are and what truly matters to you. But solitude is more than just alone time. It's an intentional practice of tuning out the noise of the world to listen to your inner voice. In this quiet, you can evaluate your relationships and decisions without the influence of others' opinions. Are you acting out of genuine desire or out of fear of rejection? Are you giving your energy to people and pursuits that align with your values? Or are you merely trying to keep the peace? By cherishing solitude, you also free yourself from the constant need for validation. Consider how often people fall into unhealthy dynamics because they fear being alone. They stay in relationships that drain them, agree to plans they don't enjoy, or tolerate disrespect, all to avoid the discomfort of solitude. But what if you flipped the script? What if you saw solitude as an opportunity to recharge, reflect, and reconnect with your true self? Stoicism challenges us to see solitude not as isolation but as empowerment. Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Solitude is the gateway to this freedom. It allows you to disentangle your sense of worth from the presence or opinions of others. The more comfortable you become with your own company, the less power others have over you. Think about how solitude strengthens your relationships. When you know yourself deeply, you bring clarity and confidence into your interactions. You're no longer seeking someone to complete you. Instead, you're offering your complete self. This balance creates healthier, more authentic connections built on mutual respect rather than dependency. Let's reflect on how you can incorporate solitude into your life. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. Start small. Set aside a few minutes each day to sit in silence, free from distractions. Use this time to check in with yourself. How do I feel? What do I need? Over time, this practice can grow into longer periods of reflection or activities you enjoy on your own, like journaling, walking, or simply sitting in nature. Cherishing solitude doesn't mean rejecting relationships. It means ensuring that your happiness and worth are not contingent upon them. It's about becoming so rooted in yourself that you remain whole and steady, whether surrounded by others or standing alone. With the strength of solitude as your foundation, you can approach relationships from a place of balance rather than need. Now let's explore the art of selective availability, how controlling your time and presence further ensures that you are respected and valued. Stay with me. 10. Practice selective availability. How often do you say yes without a second thought, making yourself available to everyone at all times? Does this leave you feeling stretched too thin or, worse, underappreciated? There's a paradox in relationships. The more accessible you are, the more likely people are to take you for granted. Selective availability is not about playing games, it's about safeguarding your time and energy to ensure they are respected and valued. Stoicism reminds us that time is one of our most precious resources. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This wisdom extends to how you allocate your time. Are you spending it on people and activities that align with your values, or are you giving it away indiscriminately, only to feel depleted and unfulfilled? Selective availability means being intentional with your presence. It's about recognizing that your time is finite and choosing carefully where to invest it. This doesn't mean you shut people out. It means you engage meaningfully, ensuring that your relationships are built on mutual respect rather than convenience. Let's explore what this looks like in practice. Imagine a friend who frequently asks for your help but rarely reciprocates. Instead of being immediately available every time they call, consider pausing and assessing. Does this align with my priorities right now? Am I saying yes out of obligation or genuine desire? If it's the former, respond with honesty. I'd love to help, but I'm unable to at the moment. This simple boundary signals that your time is valuable and should not be taken lightly. But what about those who interpret selective availability as rejection? Some people, especially those accustomed to having unlimited access to you, may react negatively when you set boundaries. This resistance is natural. It's a reflection of their adjustment, not your worth. Stay firm. As Epictetus advises, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your reaction, calm and steady, reinforces the boundary without escalating conflict. Selective availability also enhances the quality of your interactions. When you're not constantly overextended, you can bring your full attention and energy to the people and tasks that matter most. Imagine the difference between reluctantly attending a gathering out of obligation versus joyfully showing up, because it aligns with your priorities. In the latter case, your presence is more meaningful both to you and to others. There's another hidden benefit to this practice. It naturally elevates how others perceive you. When your time is limited and purposeful, people begin to value it more. They see your presence as a privilege, not a given. This shift fosters greater respect and consideration in your relationships, ensuring that your availability is met with appreciation rather than expectation. Here's a challenge. Take a moment to evaluate how you've been spending your time. Are there areas where you've been overly available at the expense of your own peace and priorities? Identify one situation where you can practice selective availability this week. Maybe it's declining a social invitation to rest or postponing a request to focus on your own goals. Notice how this decision impacts your energy and sense of self-respect. Remember, selective availability isn't about withholding yourself from others. It's about ensuring that when you give your time and attention, it's intentional and meaningful. This practice not only protects you from being used, but also creates healthier, more balanced connections. With all 10 habits explored, you now have a comprehensive guide to reclaiming your self-respect and ensuring that you are valued in your relationships. Let's take a moment to reflect on what you've learned and how these Stoic principles can transform your life. As we've journeyed through these 10 habits, one truth has become clear. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for how others will treat you. From reaffirming your self-worth to establishing boundaries, from cherishing solitude to practicing selective availability, these habits empower you to live with dignity, self-respect, and purpose. Now it's your turn. Which habit resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you found value in this guide, consider liking and sharing this video to help others embrace these Stoic principles and reclaim their worth. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on living a life of strength and purpose. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you continue to honor your worth, protect your peace, and cultivate relationships built on mutual respect. Stay strong, stay true, and remember, your time, energy, and presence are precious. Guard them wisely.